ladies and gentlemen, and welcome to Fight for Our Freedom Radio. And I'm your host, Badbaby. And tonight we have Gill Broussard with us, and he is going to update us on Planet 7X, is what he calls it. A lot of us call it Nibiru, Planet X, the Destroyer. Like I said, it has many, many names. I don't see Gill in the window yet. He asked me to call him before the show, and I've called a couple times, and it goes right to his voicemail. I hope something hasn't happened to him, but if I have to pause for a moment and try to jingle him again, let's hope he shows up. Okay, something's going on. He hasn't shown up, so I am going to have to give him a call. But before I give him a call, I'm going to talk for a minute, and maybe he'll show up. I'm wondering if he fell asleep, because he did tell me he hasn't been feeling well. I just want to talk a little bit about getting back into the swing of it, and I'm going to probably start being out here on a regular basis again. I have a show lined up next week. We're going to have Scott from the Nibiru channel back on. And then the following week, we are going to have John Teeter, retired military time traveler. And this should be a great show because this man says that he has traveled backwards in time and forward in time. He has been in the underground deep space, and he has a lot of very pertinent information. He has written 2 books. He forwarded his books to me, and I am currently reading them. But I have heard John before on other interviews. I've heard him on Coast to Coast. He's had articles written about him in the Washington Post. He is known around the world, and I'm just honored to have him come on. Spoke with him today. We confirmed a date, so he will be on my last Friday of the month. I think it's the 30th, but, you know, just keep checking back. And Arizona, would you kindly pull up one of your poems and read a poem while I hang up and give Gill a quick call?
Sure. Let me see what I can find.
Okay, that would help, and then we won't have dead air there.
Okay.
My dogs are being bad tonight, you guys. If you hear tags clinking and background noise, usually they're settled down, but for some reason they're all antsy tonight, pushing on me, wanting me to get up and do stuff. I keep telling them to behave, but they aren't. I told Marlo to behave while the bumper song was on, and I got a big old kiss right on my mouth. Yuck.
Okay, I have one memorized. Yeah. I have one memorized. It's called I Work for the Machine.
Okay.
I think I've read that one to you before. This
All
is
right,
a cautionary
and while you're doing
tale.
that, I'm going to try to give Gill a quick call, find out what's going on. Thank you, sweetie.
Okay. All right, then. This is a cautionary poem about the mark of the beast. This is nothing about me or what I believe or what I would do. It's simply a poem about somebody who takes the mark of the beast and the way they are. And I'm going to change my voice a little bit so that I sound like a computer. Hi, I'm a computer chip. Yes, my brother's Hal. Satan downloads to my brain, but I am in control. I am working for the beast, Big Brother's database. Watch me take my orders. Watch me interface. There is no correcting this. Lock to the terminal. I have lost all sense of self and all my hope as well. I am just a microchip with no will of my own. I am just a barcode made of flesh and bone. Yes, I have been branded on my forehead and my hand. I gave my soul to Lucifer. I didn't understand. I work for the anthill. The anthill is my home. I am the collective's mind. I am just a drone. I work for the anthill. Things are not what they seem. I work for the anthill. I work for the machine. There is, oh no, I lost it. I'm sorry, folks. Going to see if Badbaby comes back on in a minute. Oh, I'm sorry, I lost it. I can't remember the rest of it. I work for the anthill. The anthill is my home. I am the collective mind. I am just a drone. I work for the anthill. Things aren't what they seem. I work for the anthill. I work for the machine. I will live much longer. Yes, I'm healthy. I'm not shy. I will do as I am told, although it's all a lie. I will torture people, anyone, in fact. I think it's my idea, but that is all an act. I'll starve them and I'll persecute. I will do it blind. I hate them for their freedom because I have lost my mind. I work for the anthill. The anthill is my home. I am the collective mind. I am just a drone. I work for the anthill. I gave up my dream. I work for the anthill. I work for the machine.
I'm back. Thank you.
You're welcome. I lost
okay,
it, baby.
I did get
lost it.
He was not feeling well, but he is calling in right now. He just showed up, so let's welcome him to the call.
Hello there.
Hi, Gill. I'm so
Hello.
sorry you haven't been feeling well. We will keep you in our prayers.
All right. Thank you. Thank you. I appreciate it.
I won't keep you long tonight. Then you know I do a 2-hour show. We had spoke about this earlier. I would like to try to do an hour, but if you can't, if you start feeling bad or whatever, just let us know and we'll cut it short.
Okay.
Okay. So when we spoke the other day on the phone, you said that you had some updated information about the constellation of the stars. So would you like to explain a little bit to us about that?
Sure. The new information came when I was reading Manuel Velikovsky's notes. He gave a quote from Joshua's Long Day, where he made a statement that the sun and moon had stood still. And I must have read that several times before, but at that time it's something that had clicked. That he said the moon had stood still, and that the moon is on a basically a separate orbit than Earth, and that it would be affected differently. And so I went back in the model and looked in 2017. And what I did is I took the viewpoint from Jerusalem, made a 12-hour delay of Earth's rotation like I did the previous year, which puts the location of Jerusalem looking from the Pacific Ocean. Then I programmed manually a 12-hour delay in the position of the moon, and we have a even a better match with March 2017, of the March 15, 16 of 2017 than we had before in 2016. This time Jupiter is in the belly of the woman, and she's pregnant, and the moon is exactly at the foot of Virgo when we compensate for that 12-hour delay. And So we do have one more date to take a look at. And that'll be this coming March on the 15th to 16th of 2017. It cannot be September because we have too much data, hard data from people who viewed it. It's not in September. The exit point is in March. And viewing Virgo in September, you're using the daytime skies. That's the occult. That's called the zodiac. That's not the biblical version. The biblical version, you use the nighttime skies. One way you can see the nighttime skies is in March or April of Virgo, as far as it being at midnight and that type of stuff. So it's definitely not September like so many people are claiming, because that's the occult version.
Isn't that what David Meade is saying? He's saying September, October is when the planet will be aligned with her feet.
No, that ain't it. Nope. They're pulling for straws. They don't have any hard data at all. Matter of fact, if they would have looked at my data, the Chinese records, remember they saw this object just 960 years ago. In the Chinese records in 1054. The Chinese that they're reading is, it's able to be read today. It's quite easy to read it. And we have the Chinese, the Japanese, and the Korean that all saw it and all documented it. And then when we look back at other scientific reports, like there's 2 different independent studies that show that the orbits of comets are warped in one area of space. That area of space happens to match the data that we're just presented here. Out of 88 constellations, it matches only that area. And only way that you can have the orbits of comets warped is by unknown gravity and or unknown magnetic fields, which is what this object is, at the time. And then you can look at the Pioneer and Voyager probes, where NASA sent them. All of the articles were stating that they were looking for the 10th planet. And when we reverse our model, it puts the location of this planet in between the two Pioneer. In between the Pioneer and the Voyager probes, right in the middle, exactly where they were saying that they were looking for it. The odds of that are pretty slim when you got 88 different constellations. And it goes on and on. We have scientific hard data with a multiple eyewitness accounts in 1054, plus modern scientific studies. And then we have 14 biblical accounts that when we apply this Chinese model and reproduce the model in a laboratory according to what the biblical is saying, and look at the events, what it would cause on where Earth is at the time, we have an exact match. And that's the definition of science and astronomy. Mm-hmm. Whenever you can take unknown phenomena, bring into the laboratory, and show that it's repeatable, that's science. Well, we have, again, 14 cases, hard evidence. Like one, just taking one. You showed there was a 3-hour eclipse. Says the whole Earth was darkened. We also have outside text that states that the whole Earth was darkened, confirming this. The moon can't give you complete darkness of the entire Earth. It's only a band, a shadow band that goes across only a few countries. And it can only give you 7.3 minutes of darkness, not the entire Earth. And This was Passover. The moon's on the wrong side of Earth. To make a solar eclipse, it takes a new moon, not a full moon. So this automatically points to a third object. And when we bring it in the laboratory, and we can do a calculation that's roughly between 5.5 and 6, 5.5 and 7.5 diameters of Earth. It kind of works out the best is around 7. We use around 7 diameters of Earth gives us a 3-hour eclipse, exactly like the text says. And that goes on and on in the Bible. Any place where the biblical records state a double eclipse, where the sun is darkened and the moon is turned to blood red, a double eclipse does not happen in the natural. It takes a third object. And it's mentioned multiple times. It's, matter of fact, this object is the most talked about object in the Bible and the least known.
Do you think, Gill, that this planet is the third secret of Fatima?
Could be, since I wasn't there on the secret end, it could be.
You know, I mean, the fact that they said that it was too devastating to let the public know, and the other thing that is highly suspicious is that they have that statue in front of the Vatican of, it looks like an asteroid hitting a planet. Are you familiar with that?
Yes.
Yeah. You know, I mean,
the Bible describes the last time that this planet passed. Remember, it could pass through our solar system, but it doesn't mean it's a near miss to Earth, okay? It just means it changes our weather, you know, patterns and a few other things that happen. Just
and our weather patterns are changing, aren't they, Gill?
Oh, yes, in a great way. It's heating up the Earth and the sun. All of the planets are heating up. That's what caused the volcanoes and earthquakes and methane releases that's killing birds and fish and other land animals. You know, I just need to ask you just one question. You know, what affects the Earth's magnetic field to where it's moving at 12 times its normal rate? It used to be in the middle of Canada. Now it's heading towards the north, the geographic North Pole at 12 times its normal speed. So what affects a magnetic field? Another magnetic field. Just like we earlier stated that the orbits of comets were warped. Well, that's what would do it. And that's what's causing the majority of these effects, not just on Earth, but on other planets as well.
Yeah.
We're seeing changes.
Yeah, and you know, we've heard some reports. They aren't talking a lot about it, but I'm always searching and investigating, and I've heard reports that Pluto has been affected, Jupiter has been affected. Also, I watch BP Earthwatch all the time, and he talks about things that are hitting the sun and exploding, and I'm wondering if this is, you know, part of the debris field that's coming along with it, that these meteorites that it's dragging are hitting the sun right now.
No, the meteorites, their orbits are affected also by this. That's why we're having more meteors in our Earth's atmosphere. They would normally miss us.
Yes.
But the orbits are warped. Therefore, some of them will hit the sun, some of them will hit us, and everything. But it's not. It doesn't happen like a billiards where a ball runs into another one and it sends in a different direction. That's not exactly the way planets work. If anything gets close to this planet, you know, per se, it will, like another meteor, it's going to be sucked in and be part of the crust. it's going to collide and collide with this planet and be absorbed. So only thing that it can be doing is affecting existing paths of comets and asteroids and warping their orbit through a magnetic field attraction.
Mm-hmm.
And that's why you're seeing more of them cross Earth's path. They normally would miss us, but now they're not.
And many people are catching these. I mean, I've seen many YouTube videos where people were driving and saw a meteor come in and explode or go across the sky, and they don't know where it went, but they saw,
Correct.
they video these things. And it's happening more and more every day, and not only in the United States, but around the world.
See, the last time it passed close to Earth, within, giving us severe effects, that was Hezekiah, around 700 BC. That was the last time it passed so close that it caused Earth to tilt 26 to 28 degrees. And that's one of the most extreme effects that can happen. And
Earth is tilting already because they had to recalibrate the airplanes. They were off sync. They had to recalibrate them twice.
You can look it up. The orbit of Earth has expanded to a large. The wobble. The Earth wobbles on its axis. Okay, and it kind of wobbles around the north, the geographic North Pole. Okay, well that wobble got larger in the diameter by almost two separate degrees. Okay, and because something's affecting it, and this changes the location and where the sun is rising, as the northern Eskimos have noticed. Like even some people notice shadows on their porch, or the shadow coming into their window is slightly different for this time of year, and that changes things, a little bit. But Earth wobble, or the tilt of the wobble, is larger. We're making a much larger circle around the geographic North Pole than what we normally would. And that's scientifically proven. This is not exaggeration. This is real.
Mm-hmm. We're having quite an increase in the earthquakes and also the intensity of the earthquakes. And the cover story for that is that they're saying it's from fracking.
Right. That has nothing to do with this. Absolutely nothing to do with this.
That's what I say. I don't think fracking is a good thing, but, there are many things that they're covering up. For instance, the methane gas leak in California, where a whole neighborhood had to evacuate because they were getting sick from the smell of the gas. And there was a slight little report about it on the news, and then nobody said anything. But I have been going and following, and, the hit's still going on.
Well, the majority of the area of the world that's being affected doesn't even have fracking in it. Fracking doesn't kill ocean creatures in mass numbers in multiple places in the world as it does. No, fracking is equivalent to like a mosquito bite on a person. It's so small it's not even a factor when you're talking about global effects as what we're seeing.
Well, and the other thing is they're doing some strange things. The government is, like, for instance, they're going to shoot all the wolves. Did you hear about that?
No, I haven't. But,
I saw a petition on Facebook where they're going to fly over the mountains in helicopters and shoot all the wolves. Also, they were killing all the bison over there in Yellowstone. There was a petition then, stop them from killing the bison. Now, I just read an article where they're going to kill 15,000 wild horses because they said that there's too many of them. I mean, why are they killing all these animals?
Well, it's true. When animals overpopulate, nature goes into effect, and they'll create diseases. And if you take a close look, you see that some of the horses are overgrazing certain areas, and some of the horses are starving. Just like any animal, if you overpopulate, farmers and hunters do this naturally. They'll thin the herds out a little bit to where they can grow healthier and more in a cohesive nature,
yeah, I understand what you're saying.
Environment, but
my theory on it is that they don't want a food chain except for anybody that survives.
Yeah. Well, remember these animals are in a confined area, and they normally roam thousands of miles. That's their normal habitat, and it's brought down to just you would be lucky if it's 100 even miles, and they do overpopulate very quickly, and then they would have become a hazard. It's just now as far as wolves, wolves have their part in nature, but I'm not a big fan of them. If you've ever been around them before, they do a lot of damage to farmers' property and their cattle and everything else. Even humans, if you're planning to be camping, because they hunt in packs, just like wild dogs.
Okay, well, here's another question about the animals. I've seen several stories where I think they said 150 reindeer were struck by lightning, they said, and they all died. And then I seen a few weeks ago where there were 40 cows. They said they were struck by lightning and died. And I thought at the time, sounds kind of suspicious. And then I saw a story where somebody took a sample from one of the reindeer and had it analyzed, and they found anthrax in them.
Well, some animals would naturally have that. That's not an uncommon thing for us to find. You can go in any cattle feedlot or cattle farm. You can check the soil. You're going to find it in there. It's it's only if they're weak or under stress would they contract this. You have to have the right circumstances to happen. But you will find it. It's in nature. It's still an active. Just as whenever ticks and blood-sucking disease get in contact with them and humans, then there's some transfer. But we just don't want to populate the news media on where they find this stuff, where like you can find it naturally. No, but disease is something that nature uses to reduce population, whether it's human or animal. Anytime there's a large population, when they don't have the amount of food that they need, then their first thing that goes is their immune system gets lower, and disease is able to take hold. And we're into some hard times coming.
Yes.
Matter of fact, the Bible gives us in Book of Revelation. We can bring that into the laboratory as well. Use the same model, and it is pointing to this planet passing very close to Earth again, where Earth would tilt. 26 to 28 degrees. Earth will also stop rotating on its axis for 24 hours. Remember where it said the 4 angels go to stop the wind? Well, only way the wind stops is when the Earth stops rotating. There's another comment where it says basically noon is turned into night and midnight into noon. Well, an eclipse can only give you darkness. It doesn't give you light. So how do you turn midnight into daylight? Well, when there's a 12-hour delay in the Earth's rotation, that's exactly what you have. You have, you have the opposites of between night and day. There is data in the Bible, very hard data, and it's said in a very unique way. It's stated in the order that the model shows what happened, and it makes a bold comment in multiple places. Let's see, was it Ezekiel makes a bold statement, and I think also I can't think of the other old prophet there. Let me see if I can find my paper here. Let me look at my notes. I haven't had an interview in a while. Yeah, let's see, Isaiah and let's see, Ezekiel both state, like Isaiah 24, chapter 24, verse 19-20. It says, the earth is broken up, the earth is split asunder. The earth is violently shaken, and the earth reels like a drunkard. It sways like a hut in the wind. Well, that's a viewpoint of Earth from space. How did they have that? In Ezekiel 38, verse 20, it even states that, and it says, and a mountain shall be thrown down, and the steep places shall fall, and every wall falls to the ground. Well, in some of the version, it says every wall on earth is cracked. Okay, that takes a tremendous earthquake to affect the entire earth in a severe way, where all walls are cracked. Now, some people say, well, this is fictional stories. The model says that this can happen, that this is possible. Knowing that the past stories, the other stories mentioned, do not violate anything in the model. As a matter of fact, it states the correct order. And these people in the Bible did not have Kepler's law of the planetary motion, was not aware of the motion of the orbit of this planet to get the sequence and how it would affect Earth. Like slowing down Earth when Earth would go through the tail of this comet tail, which is plasma, which is not ice particles. Well, when Earth enters the tail, this plasma, it's going to absorb the energy coming into our north and south pole, and that's going to cause our rotation to slow down by 4.5 to 5.5% compounded hourly, where within 24 hours, Earth comes to a complete stop, just as the text says in Joshua's long day, and just as it also says in the book of Revelation. And both in the time of Noah, which is 150-day separation, and the modern time period of 152 and 1/8 day mentioned in Revelation, where it says 5 months apart. That's exactly the amount of gap we have between the comet entry of Earth's orbit, where it crosses Earth's orbit, and the exit, where it crosses Earth's orbit again. Exactly 152 and 1/8 day apart. They didn't have this science. They couldn't have guessed these things and get these things mathematically correct in sequence, a multiple of 14 separate events. It's impossible mathematically. If you look at the odds of this, if you get any 4 circumstances in the correct order, we would or 6, we would consider that mathematically impossible. You have to have seen a real object. Well, if you look at each situation that's giving different characteristics which are correct for each event, and there's 14 of them, well, that brings it way beyond any odds of this being a hoax. They saw a real object.
Do you think that they're using the old global warming as a cover story?
Yeah, for people who don't know how to do the math, global warming has never been a provable. They have to fake data, and there are certain things in nature that you can calculate, like the absorption factor and a few other, that tells you that global so-called CO2 problem is not caused by man in a way that is affecting the Earth. Again, it's a simple...
we hear so much that the planet is heating up from the inside, and all you have to do is follow the volcano maps and see how many volcanoes are erupting and how many are coming alive that haven't erupted for... There's one that just came alive not too long ago, hadn't erupted in over 100 years. And, these volcanoes are just going crazy. It doesn't take a rocket scientist to understand that the lava is coming to the surface.
Right. We have global weather pattern changes, which this is what history has proven to us pertaining to this planet. Every 350 years or so, depending on, it has a slightly erratic orbit, but we can go back 350, 360 years back, and we find these extreme weather patterns, like the many ice ages, and you name it. If you also plot the perihelion and the aphelion of its orbit around the sun, for the people who don't know astronomy, that means the closest point to the sun that this object reaches and the most furthest point, and you put the approximate dates down, well, guess what? It has an exact match of our extreme weather pattern.
Well, we have had biblical flooding, that's for sure, and also the tornadoes. They're having tornadoes where they never had tornadoes before. And these tornadoes aren't small tornadoes, they're huge.
Well, CO2 does not change the magnetic north of Earth. Remember? It's moving at 12 times its normal speed. And global warming on Earth doesn't change the weather patterns and the effects of other planets. Neither does it change the effects of orbits of comets and asteroids.
Well, did you see what happened in Florida yesterday with that tropical storm?
No, I wasn't in tune with the news.
They had a tropical storm that was forming, and they said that, it didn't form. But then it got across the state and formed while it was across the state. And they said on the news that has never happened before. They have never had a tropical storm form while it was in the state. First time ever.
They don't normally form over the land because you need hot air from the bottom to rise to make that, that twist. So yes, that's we've seen things we've never seen before.
Right.
In all areas.
Picture, I can't remember where this was, but actually it was a moose swimming in the water, and it was frozen solid. The water froze and the moose froze.
Yep. Well, we got entire herds of mammoths that are frozen solid.
Yeah, that's the first thing I thought of when I saw that. I said, that's the same thing that happened to the woolly mammoth. And I thought, that poor moose thought he was just swimming, and he froze solid in the water. And I was like, oh. You know,
see,
when
this actually happens
you can't deny it.
See, this happens to millions of mammoths. It's not even, we're not talking about an isolated herd or we're talking about millions of mammoths were frozen. Is what the scientists have estimated now, because they're seeing more and more of them in huge herds and everything. This happened when Earth tilted. That they were moved into the Arctic zone at such with high winds, with extremely low temperatures, and they were flash frozen. Some of these animals did not have time to swallow the food they had in their mouth.
Yep.
And they were and the vegetation they found in their stomach and in their mouth was subtropic. It was not Arctic plants. So at the time that they were eating, it was a much more temperate climate, and they suddenly froze to death.
I had interviewed an archaeologist.
It's going to happen again.
An archaeologist, Michael Steinbecker, quite a while back, and he was telling me of some of the findings that he had came across, and he was talking about in the mountains he was finding seashells and and he said just absolute proof that those mountains were in the ocean at one time.
Well, not in a way, but waves can travel extremely far, and they are raging at, when the Earth is tilting, keep in mind that for Earth to tilt 26 to 28 degrees, that's roughly 1,800 miles. It roughly takes 6 hours for the tilt. If you do the math, that's 300-mile-an-hour winds on open water. If you understand that F5 tornado reaches 300-mile-an-hour winds, and grass doesn't stay in the ground.
That's the speed of the one that hit Joplin, Missouri, was an F5.
Correct. Now you're looking at oceans sloshing 26 to 28 degrees. It's going to carry a lot of debris with it on mountain. Remember, the Bible says in Revelation, every mountain and island is moved. Continents are going to be moved. There isn't going to be a single place on earth where there's not going to be an earthquake, because you're dealing with the entire continents moving.
Mm-hmm.
It says also that certain islands would disappear and certain mountains would disappear. Okay? A mountain range is where there was a stress point, where the earth crust buckled. A lot of people think a mountain is a safe area. Yeah, for maybe water, but it's actually pointing out that the crust is the weakest there, and that stresses will probably happen again in those areas. Is the highest, most likely areas for an earthquake stress point of mountain ranges, because they were formed by that under a major stressful situation. And that's what we're going to go through again, a major stressful situation.
Well, I'm getting quite a few reports about the truckers are having a hard time getting their loads, that it's taking them weeks to get a load, that usually it only takes them a few days. And they said, but the truckers that are under government contract are working day and night, and they're going to the underground bunkers. So they are stocking up really immensely. And
well,
I want your take. What do you think? Do you think they're going to be safe?
no, the Bible says anyone who goes underground, that's their tomb, at least on this side of earth. The Bible clearly, he tells us, he gives us instructions. He says during Passover, which is when this thing is going to be happening, about 3.5 days after Passover, which is Passover week, you're literally required to show up in Jerusalem. He says that. That's what the rehearsal patterns, which the Hebrew word mekrah means. It doesn't mean feast. It means a dry rehearsal. Well, now this dry rehearsal is going to be a real event. If you follow his instructions and go to Jerusalem, he says a remnant will be saved out of this event. And he will bring them to a place in the wilderness where they are safe for 3.5 years, which is during the Great Tribulation.
Mm-hmm.
And scientifically, the way that he described these things in the evening is right on the money. Let me give you, for instance, that the truckers are not out of trouble yet. A lot of people may not be aware of this, but we need to keep a close look on what's happening in the Middle East with Israel and the Saudis and a few other places. Saudi Arabia, along their eastern border and their southern border, their population right there is half Shiite and half Sunni. Shiite is a group that takes their orders pretty much from the Iranian religious leader. When Colonel Gaddafi fell and Mubarak fell from power, around the same time, the president of Yemen fell out of power. And the people that was left to run the government, they don't know how to run the government properly. So they asked for help from the Iranians, and the Iranians sent the part of the Republican Guard that they have, a military detachment, to help them run their government. So you have the Iranian troops on the ground in Yemen. Well, there's a highway from Yemen to the capital of Saudi Arabia. By car, it would only take you 3 hours to reach the capital of Saudi Arabia. Within a day, Saudi Arabia could fall if there was an actual attack plan. So, which Saudi Arabia is well aware of this, and that's why they're doing bombing in Yemen and trying to get their hands, well, they have gotten their hands on nuclear weapons. It's highly probable that there will be a very serious war between the Iranians and Saudi Arabians. And they will destroy each other's oil fields in this process using nuclear weapons. Well, if you think the truckers have problems now, wait. Oil is going to go up to probably $150 to $250 a barrel. That meant gas will go up to $6 to $8 a gallon.
Yeah, I heard that was going to happen. And, you know, it's interesting that you said that because I'm wondering if this might be a cover story because I saw this evening that there was supposed to have been a break in one of the pipelines or something like that. And they're saying that gasoline is becoming hard to get. It's going to become hard to get on the East Coast, and people will be waiting in line to get gas. Also, they're expecting the price to spike.
It's only a few areas, a few states that would be affected. I think Alabama is one. You'd have to follow where the pipeline is, which is delivering. But it's somewhere in the southeast, I believe, where it has the greatest effect. But they can truck in volumes of gasoline. It just costs them a little bit more at the pump. That's all.
Okay, we have a guest that has their hand raised and wants to ask a question.
Sure.
Hello, Arizona. Welcome to the show. You'd like to ask Gill a question?
Yes, Gill.
Howdy.
You said that the remnant is going to go to the wilderness near Jerusalem?
Yes, there's two mentions of two different taking aways. And we didn't understand that in the past. People tend to join them together and ignore what the text is saying. But they're stated completely different. One says a remnant is brought to the wilderness, which is totally different than saying everyone is brought to heaven, which is the second taking away. And it says the dead are first. Well, the first one, it doesn't mention the dead. The first taking away doesn't mention it. It says a remnant is met in Jerusalem and brought to the wilderness. Wilderness has never been referred to heaven. And it says that they stayed there in the wilderness for 1,260 days. Well, guess what? That's the length of the Great Tribulation. So where does that put it? At the beginning of the Great Tribulation.
Would that be Petra? I've heard a lot of mention of Petra.
It's possible, but you won't hear me mention it hardly because it says to meet him in Jerusalem, near Mount Zion. Okay? Some people would think they have a bright idea and go meet him in Petra. No. An obedient servant follows exactly what he says. You know, you don't add or take away to the words of what he says. And that's exactly what he says. If you read Joel chapter 2, verse 30 to 32, it gives you everything. It mentions the planet coming in, basically, because it mentions a double eclipse. And it says that there's a escape for a remnant that Yehovah has promised in Jerusalem, in Mount Zion. Remember, the word Mekra means dry rehearsal. There's three events that in these festivals or these rehearsal patterns, we are required to be in Jerusalem. We're supposed to be practicing that. Passover is one of them.
Isn't that the Feast of Tents where they go out and they live in
Sukkot? Yes, Sukkot.
Yeah.
That's coming up this next month. And if the Iraqi dinar goes up so I can have some money, I plan to fulfill that and be in Israel to practice that because I have not. Christianity has made me to be not an observant person of his laws. These are still in effect.
Right.
You know, he says, if you love me, you will follow.
He didn't come to abolish the law, but to fulfill it.
Correct. That's exactly what Yeshua was teaching us. Don't follow man-made laws because man was adding and taking away. He says follow exactly the way it was, and those were the laws that he was breaking was man-made. And he was observant, and he was teaching us this. And he says your salvation to heaven is not following the law, but being of good character. But the laws are here for your benefit. And I was like, if you're not going to follow this and not be in Jerusalem for the given appointed time, well, guess what? You can't, whenever you go up to heaven and say, well, how come you didn't save me? I died because I was in Paris or New York or whatever. He'll simply say, how come you didn't follow my instructions? I told you to follow it forever. The word used is forever. He didn't say follow it for 2,000 years and stop.
But the thing I don't understand about that, Gill, is the fact that, there's many, many people that they're, homeless and they're, they have no money. And, how can they be persecuted when they have no way to travel?
The ones who want to follow this, the Almighty, remember the slaves in Egypt, the Hebrew slaves?
Yes.
How much money do they have to travel with if you're a slave?
But they're over there on that side of the planet. I'm talking about people on
hold up. Whoa. Answer my question.
Well, they didn't have any money, no.
There you go. They didn't have any property. They didn't have any money. But read the text. They left with wagons full of gold and silver. So how rich were they when it came time to leave? There will be abundant amount of money to help the ones who really want to travel.
Well,
they have
good.
to be like-minded with people. They have to be like-minded and seek that they want to fulfill these mekrahs that the actual instructions he gave us to fulfill. A person who's going to be a couch potato that's not going to be doing anything basically is going to deserve what he gets because you're not obedient to what he's saying to be.
Let me ask you this, Gill. What do you think about the
consequences.
People, because I just got called this today, that call us crazy because we're trying to warn people about what's coming at our planet?
No more than any other prophet and no more than anybody else today that's considered a Bible thumper is considered crazy also. Matter of fact, Homeland Security has qualified it in the paperwork. If you believe in the Bible,
I was listening to them go over the number one thing on Homeland Security for a terrorist is a Christian.
Well, they have two qualifiers. One, you're considered a terrorist if you believe in the Bible and that you have, God-given rights, not government-given rights. And two, if you believe the Bible is absolutely correct, then they consider you to be mentally unstable and they can lock you up.
Yes.
I was called mentally unstable. I was told by my psychiatrist that I was a religious fanatic and carried my Bible with me everywhere, and therefore I was hospitalized.
Mhm. Yep. This is where we're going, and this is exactly why they're taking prayer out of the schools. They're taking the 10 Commandments out of the public auditoriums. It's just unreal. It's like the world is going in reverse. And, it's exactly what the Bible says. In the last days, good will be called evil and evil will be called good. And they're really pushing Islam. I just saw a posting the other day where there was a second school in Colorado where they're forcing the children to wear the burqa and the boys have to wear the turbans. I just don't, if my kids were in that school, I'd be yanking them out of that school so fast and homeschooling them. Again, people that are yanking their kids out of the schools and homeschooling them are also being told that they're mentally ill and persecuted.
See, they've taken our constitutional rights and thrown away. Remember, government is actually not to be able to stamp you as insane for a religious belief. They can't do it. It's against our Constitution. They're not supposed to tell you what to wear and what to do in schools to that level. I saw a picture of these
little boys with the turban on their heads, and they did not look happy, and I just thought, what in the world? And then another thing that's going on is if they have a T-shirt on that has the American flag on it, and they come to school with this on, they're making them to go to the bathroom and turn their shirt inside out, and because the American flag is offending the Muslim children. And I thought, well, we're in America. If they don't like it, don't come to America.
Yeah.
Some of the stuff that I see, I just have to keep giving my head a shake and going, am I in the twilight zone? What in the world is happening? What in the world is happening?
The prophets of old have already told us what was going to happen, and it's being fulfilled. It is being fulfilled in front of us. We're witnessing the death of a nation. That's what we're witnessing. We're witnessing the death of a nation.
Okay, one more question, Arizona. Go ahead.
Okay. Is there not supposed to be revival worldwide before this all happens? In other words, we're supposed to be in the place that we are in order to speak the word of God to the people that are in our area.
See, anyone can get to a electronic version of the Bible today on their phone, on the internet, globally. That's never happened before.
But I mean, I have a very strong witness. I won't go into my whole testimony or anything like that because it'll take too long. But I believe that the true believers, those who are truly touched by Christ, it'll be very important for us to be in certain geographical areas in order to witness to the people that are hurting and going to be in this catastrophe.
Remember, before Yeshua comes back, all of Israel, all that they're referring to is the 12 tribes, not all individuals of the 12 tribes, but all of Israel. In other words, the 12 tribes got to reunite in the land of Israel again. So you're going to see a remnant from each of these tribes coming back, declaring themselves as the remnant, and they're coming there to wait for the Messiah to come back. And Daniel made a prophecy that 70 Shavuim, which I believe is Jubilees, would be fulfilled before he returns. Well, the first Jubilee, as stated, when they entered the land, would be their first Jubilee. Well, we're able to date that year now using the Niebuhr disc. It's an ancient artifact. And this Jubilee we're in right now will be ending, not in September, but be ending in March or April. That is the fulfillment of 70 Jubilees. So just after that, the sign in the heaven is showing us that the Messiah returns. Right, because Daniel didn't say 69 and a half Jubilees. He said 70. We think he said 70 Jubilees. Well, that meant this March or April, that 70 would be over with. And he appears because he says this is going to be like a wedding. His bride has to be at her home, which is the Old Jerusalem.
Right, but doesn't it also say that nobody will know the time?
Because there's two different taking away.
Nobody will know the time or the date, but it also says there will be signs in the heavens.
Well, it also states
and
that
the moon
his
and
people,
the stars, which is what we're relating to with the fact that Planet X is heading this way.
Plus, if you take that passage and read the passage above it and below it, it clarifies that. He says now he's talking about, remember, there's two taking away. This taking away that no man knows the day or the hour is the second taking away. And he's talking to a Hebrew crowd, and he says, "For I have no need to tell you, for you already know, for it is the day and the hour that no man knows." And he goes on. I can't quite remember it from memory, but his people do know, and that is in September. There's a day of the first or the last trump, I believe it's called. That's around September, and that's been known as the day and hour that no man knows, because it's the only feast that begins at the beginning of the month, and the beginning of a month in Hebrew. Remember, you don't follow the Gregorian calendar. It's when the first sliver of light of moon shows up, and then you know that the festival has started. So no man knows the day or the hour until you witness the first sliver. Well, that is what the normal people call resurrection, where the dead are first and the living are next, and we go into heaven. That would be a September. See, remember, between March and September is roughly 6 months apart. Remember, the Great Tribulation is 3.5 years. There's the beginning and the end on the calendar is exactly 6 months apart. So the beginning one is going to be in March, where he comes and grabs a bride at mid of night. In a Hebrew wedding, a groom comes to pick up his bride mid of night. But before he does that, he sends a messenger to tell her he's coming. Well, Elijah and Moses will be showing up on the Feast of Passover, announcing the groom is coming. And the groom will be coming mid of week, mid of night. So you have 3 days or 3.5 days to prepare for the groom to be coming. That's how a bride will go tell her bridesmaids, prepare yourself, get in your proper uniform and your lamps, and meet me at home in 3 nights. And they meet at her home on the third night for the groom to come mid of night to pick her up. He says it's like a wedding.
What about the scripture that says, if somebody says the Christ is here, do not go. If somebody says the Christ is there, do not go. Because when the Christ comes, it will be as the lightning across the sky, and everybody will know.
You have multiple events happening at the same time during this time. Jews, people of Judaism and Islam do not believe that Yeshua was the Messiah. They believe him as a prophet.
Yes.
Okay?
Right.
In Islam, it says that a Christ will walk out of the desert as a prophet, and he will point to their Mahdi, saying that their Mahdi is the Messiah. Okay? This is where Christ will be a prophet. This is a false prophet coming out of the desert, pointing to the Mahdi, pointing to the false Messiah. The false Messiah will create a miracle that no man can do, which is, our Bible calls it a false miracle. He will he would declare the earth to slow down by 12 hours and have fire fall on their enemies, which would be North and South America. Because the astronomers will make an error. They will predict the Middle East being hit by this meteor shower. But they have no model. There's only a biblical model that shows Earth slowing down by 12 hours. And therefore, 12 hours is exactly...
proven, right, Gill, that the United States is the one that's going to be lined up directly with the meteor shower.
Correct. It says 1/3 of the land, it says 1/3 of the grass, trees, and later it says rivers. Well, they didn't have a word for continental crust, but they just mentioned it. They actually described it. Well, you got to put a globe in your hand of the earth. And for you flat earthers, sorry, the earth is not flat.
Oh, I know. I get that all the time. That I'm, when people see that my show says "Fight for Our Freedom," they say, "Why don't you tell the truth about freedom and about the flat Earth?" I won't even go there because I know the Earth isn't flat.
Right. If they knew how to do the proper math, they'd know it. But they're stuck on it. You can't get them off of it.
Right. I don't even
look,
bother trying to talk to those people because there's no talking to them. I just ignore them totally. I totally ignore them.
So
but another thing that I find that's very interesting, and thank you, Arizona. I'm going to meet you back because we're getting a little echo here.
Okay.
Another thing that I find interesting, Gill, is are you aware that the banks are prepping for a nuclear winter?
Oh yes, that's part of FEMA and everything. They have to declare. They have to put out troops or police to stop the run on the banks whenever they do a bail-in. A bail-in will happen overnight. It'll probably happen over a weekend when people can't get to the banks. There will be a crisis that will initiate this. And you can start looking for a banking crisis. We already see inklings of it in Europe. Japan is in major debt. So when you see, if you keep your eye on Europe and Japan, if you see those two falling financially, America's next. And it would happen within 2 or 3 days of a major fall. Maybe a week at the most. And you'd see a bail-in happen in all of these countries. Bail-in is freezing all assets in a bank, even safety deposit boxes, everything.
Now, I have warned so many people, Gill. I have said, you've got to get your IRAs and cash them in. If you want your money, you better get it out now and do something with it, because even if you get it out and hold on to it, they are going to devalue it.
Correct.
They're going to come back and say, okay, you're going to get 25 cents on the dollar. So spend it now while you can. And, I'm so tired of people telling me I'm crazy. I really am. You know what? If you want to lose, go ahead and lose. But, I'm talking about what I have found out, and I have found out a lot of my information from people that come straight from the Pentagon.
All right.
I know a lot of people around this country, and they're all saying the same thing. I don't know if you ever heard of Michael Snyder. I have interviewed him. He talks about there's going to be a great collapse, and when they tell you what he says is that they're going to tell everybody that they're having a computer glitch, and that you won't be able to get any banking until Monday. He said it'll probably be on a Friday when everyone goes to cash their checks, and that you won't be able to get any banking. And he said, and when Monday comes around, then everybody will be in for the big surprise. And he says the first thing they're going to go after are your savings and your retirement funds, and that they're just going to take them.
Without a doubt. The Bible says in a Shemitah and a Jubilee year, you should stock up food for that year and be financially secure. Try to get out of debt. It's telling you there's going to be a financial crisis.
Yes.
If you don't,
right now.
We can either chalk it up that the Bible just hits a lucky guess right here that there will be a food shortage and a financial crisis, and that it just made a lucky guess that there's a planet involved, and a bunch of we can keep on using the excuse that the Bible just happens to make lucky guesses throughout history. Okay, otherwise you can either put it in gear and realize it's a scientific data that's linked to a real object, and that it's warning us because there's a real creator that can see into the future, and he's giving you proper warning. Now, make a decision. You either listen to it or you don't.
Yeah.
But the ones who are not going to be financially prepared and with financial and food coming up, they need enough food and stuff to get them to January. Because if this is the year, that's if, and we will know it by December. I always stated that we'll know the exact year because prior to the arrival, months earlier, the government has to control money. They have to ration money, ration food, and ration fuel. When you see these things happen, that meant we got the year that the planet is arriving. Because they can't be issuing out money.
I had a guy on last week. He does a YouTube video called the Nubaru Watch, and he went yesterday and interviewed a chemtrail pilot that the poor man is dying of cancer. He has a tumor in his brain. He has a tumor in his throat. They've cut his tongue out. They've cut half of his throat out. He's got a feeding tube in him, and he can't even speak. He writes down what he wants to say, and he wanted to tell this guy exactly what he was told about spraying chemtrails, and he said that they had to sign a disclosure agreement, and that he was told that the reason they were spraying the chemtrails was to help the ozone layer because the planet was heating up because of the sun, and he said they were totally lied to, and the fact that when chemtrail planes crisscross and, you know, they get their air from outside, he was breathing in the barium, the aluminum, the anthrax, everything that's in the chemtrails, the lithium, and this caused him to have cancer. You know, and he wanted to tell everybody things that he knew, and one of the things that he said was that everybody has to be aware of the cell phone towers, that some of them are a lie. And I know what he's talking about. He's talking about the Tetra towers. The Tetra towers were put up in the war, and they have revitalized them. And I knew this a long time ago. I did a show way, way long time ago about the Tetra towers and how they're going to turn them on and microwave everybody to the point where they're going to make people angry and go crazy. And interesting enough, this poor man wrote at the very end of this interview, and he's going to be talking about it next week. It was sad. He showed a picture of it. He wrote, "I'm sorry."
Wow.
And he's dying, you know, and you know, my heart just broke when I saw that because he was lied to. He thought he was doing a good thing, and now he's suffering from cancer and dying from it. And also he's suffering inside of his heart, the fact that he did this to humanity.
Yeah, well, the government is not going to tell the truth to the people to the last 40 days of its approach. That's the same warning. Remember, a wicked and adulterous world will have only one warning, and that's the sign of Jonah. Well, Jonah walked to Nineveh, and he didn't create one miracle to better convince the population. Only thing he had to do was point to the sky and say, "Your doom comes in 40 days," and the whole town misrepented because they knew it was a real object. Okay, because they could see it. So at 40 days, you would see it. It looked like a star. It does not get sizable in our view till it gets about 2 to 2.5 weeks away. So we're looking for something just like you'd see Jupiter or Venus at night in the sky. If anybody, you know, as a kid, when they say, you know, they throw a wish on a star, well, that first star you'd see at night, it's usually a planet, either Jupiter or Venus, because they're much closer than any of the stars. But that's the way this thing is going to look like. And according to my software,
Ed Dane says that when they're fighting and having a war, what he remote viewed, he said this on Coast to Coast. He said when they're all fighting and in the middle of a war, they look up and they see it, and they lay their guns down and go home because they know there's no point anymore.
You see,
we got another question. Yes, Arizona. You have another question?
Yes. Paper money is going to be worthless. Should we invest in gold or silver? Because I know they've been stripping the American people of gold for a long time. These you see commercials on TV all the time, get money for your gold, et cetera, et cetera. Well, they've been trying to strip us of our gold, knowing that we're desperate for money.
Actually, the American public in many other countries have never had a greater amount of gold than they have now, because people have traded in a lot of their dollars, but they don't understand the markets very, very well. That gold is not controlled by demand. Gold is controlled by the same cartel that controls the oil. Okay. They manipulate
this is why
prices.
when you buy gold, you have to register it with the government how much you have.
Yes, on anything, even the dinar. Whenever you buy that, her statement about gold being, paper money being worthless, that would be towards the end of the Great Tribulation. That's 3.5 years later.
I see.
We are going to go through a deflation, not a inflation. Now, you can look this up in history. Anytime we go through a deflationary period, gold and silver falls with it. You're looking across the board, real estate, cars, anything of assets, gold, all that's dropping in price during a deflation. Remember during Germany when it took a wheelbarrow full of money to buy a loaf of bread? Well, that was that was inflation. Mm-hmm. But what we're fixing to go through is deflation. Now, if gold was such a good thing to hold, then why are the elite selling their gold to the public at a very high price? The public is buying it at a high price at the moment, because they're going to come back and buy it at a low price. That's why.
Yeah, that's what I heard, that they're selling it high, and then when the collapse comes in, it's going to drop immensely.
Someone had mentioned to me that they've just recently, remember, the dinar, the Iraqi dinar, if you follow the ink, and what the major corporations are doing, like BP, Shell, Siemens, and very large companies, they even got some contracts that they're going to be paid in dinar, not American dollar even. American troops that saw a plane load of pallets of money, which would fill up two 18-wheelers. Well, an 18-wheeler with $100 bills is $1 billion. So you saw $2 billion being delivered in just one of the planes. That was America buying dinar from the Iraqis. That was early in the game. Okay? And they're sitting on it. Remember when Bush said, this war is going to cost you nothing? How many billions, hundreds of billions have we spent so far?
Right.
The way it's going to be paid for is when it's revaluation. The Iraqi government had just finalized a contract with the Kurds now with the oil, and they were able to finalize their budget for 2017. It states in their budget they're using a number that the revaluation of the dinar is around $1.17.
Right. So
well,
what kind of cash, or I know the American dollar is going to bottom out, but what kind of spending material, I guess you would say, would be wise to invest in now for the crash?
You keep some cash, American dollars, at home. You don't keep anything in the bank. You can keep a small amount of gold and silver if you wish to, but don't expect that to rally early. It won't. It won't rally till many times later. Maybe a year later or so. Maybe.
I see.
So you won't better use that to pay for your house note at the time. Remember, your house note, your car note, any type of note of any time is going to retain its high debt rating, but the currency is going to fall in its buying power.
Are they going to kick people out of their houses, Gill?
Yes, at one point. If a person cannot pay their utility bills and water bills, that meant if you live in that house, that's going to be a wreck, and that's when they're going to kick them out. As long as they can pay the utility bills, they'll keep them in there. But as soon as they have to turn off water, they got to kick them out.
Now, people that are on Social Security, when they say no more checks, those are going to be the first ones that they're going to come after.
I was given this secondhand information from a person who's in charge of a FEMA camp. He's been given what they're for. The FEMA camps are to round up anyone who's sleeping on the streets, in cars, in campers, on the streets. If you're sleeping in the street and you're not sleeping, behind a home, and there's a curfew, legally you're still out at night if you're on the streets.
Yep.
And they'll pick you up and they'll put you in these FEMA camps, supposedly to feed you and to house you. But that's what they're there for, to get you off the streets.
Well, funny that you said that, because I saw someone had videoed in California a whole bunch of shopping carts that were pushed up against the wall, lined up like they were all parked there, and the man was videoing it, and he said, "What the heck is going on here?" He said, "These are all the homeless people's shopping carts, but there's no people here." Yeah. And then he did a video a little while later and said that these homeless people have just disappeared, and no one has seen them, but their things were all lined up on the edge of the sidewalk, like they made them park their carts and made them go with them. Now, then after that, I heard reports that these people have gone into the camps and have totally disappeared.
Yeah. Let me give you some vital information here. We had someone that we believe was in the military. He saw it looked like U.S. Treasury people delivering large pallets of coins that were freshly minted, which were newly minted Iraqi coins, and it was able to fill multiple planes with it. That was shipped to Iraq about 2 days ago. Those are the lower denominational coins. See, Iraq doesn't have, remember the dinar right now is like 1,000 dinar for $1 right now. So they don't have quarters and nickels and 50-cent pieces at all at the moment. But if it's revalued to what they said in the budget of $1.17, but they'll have to have new coins printed of 5 cents, 10, 15, 25, whatever. Well, they were just shipped that about 3 days ago. And then they just had what was stated in the paper. They used the words in the paper that this was their final meeting with the IMF. That was about the next day later. And they stated in the paper that Iraq met all of the requirements of the IMF now. They have fulfilled all of the requirements. That meant that they have a legal government, set up legal system, police force, military, everything that constitutes them being an active government. Therefore, they cannot have sanctions on their money anymore. It's open to be revalued officially. You're fixing to have a great amount of wealth. Now, keep in mind that the Iraqis are fixing to sell international bonds again at 5% interest. If you've been listening to the news, a lot of places overseas are charging negative interest rates or zero interest rates on on money. Well, if you're a financial institute that's in charge of billions of dollars and someone might be charging you a negative interest rate, what are you going to do? You're going to transfer money to some place where you're making a profit.
Right.
You're going to see trillions of dollars being transferred to Iraqi, but not immediately at the beginning. You have to see a crisis develop in Europe and America and Asia that's going to cause this wealth transfer into Iraq. Our Bible says that the Middle East or Iraq is going to be the number one place for financing and military power. Well, you can't be a major military power without financing.
So Obama just gave them a whole bunch of our money.
Right. Now,
Yeah,
once
sure
the dinar goes up 1,000-fold or more, when you see gold hit rock bottom and don't be very, very patient with it, it might be a year or so, then you, like if you're still here, I'm planning not to be. I'm hoping to be in a place of safety in March. But if you're still here, you could trade the Iraqi dinar then for gold if you wish, once it hits bottom, and then ride it up again. But it's all in timing. But if you since when is it a good idea for the elite, since they control the media, to advertise every day on the news and the internet for the average person to buy gold and silver? Since when do they do anything to benefit the public?
I haven't seen anything on TV that benefits the public for centuries.
Exactly.
I don't watch TV, so I didn't know.
I do catch the news, but only for I record it because I want to see what the weather forecast is, and then every once in a while I'll catch bizarre stories, like the local doctor in this area was on there telling everybody they need to download Pokemon 2, and that will get them and their family off the couch and get them walking. And exercise of any form is good for you, which, they're trying to entice people to download this Pokemon 2 because it's a form of mind control and it's satanic.
Right.
These demons in Pokemon 2 are demonic. And you know what? And you go and look in YouTube. What's popping up about this Pokemon 2 game is story after story where somebody's gotten lured into being robbed, somebody found a dead body, somebody was attacked, somebody was shot, people are being lured to cemeteries, they're just being lured to funeral homes, just dark places.
If you keep in mind the elite have to control three things from the public. They have to control the financing. They have to ration money. They got to ration food and they got to ration fuel. Okay? If they were giving you sound advice to buy gold, then they wouldn't be rationing money for you. In other words, because gold is money and silver. Therefore, you can still be buying things if it was going up. But if it was going down, you wouldn't be.
What about precious stones? What about precious stones?
No. Put it this way: diamonds are really only precious to Americans, or in the northern hemisphere. If you go to Europe, they don't want diamonds; they want rubies and emeralds. Diamonds are only promoted. Yeah. Diamonds are only promoted to the American public to make it appear as if they're rare. They're not. They're extremely abundant.
Yeah.
It's just that it's a controlled market. Remember, it's not controlled by demand. It is controlled by these elite people, just like oil is, and just like gold is. It's not
Red rubies are very rare. Red rubies are very rare. I've heard rubies are very good investments if you can get them.
Only in a good economy. How many people are going to be wearing or getting, wanting to trade rubies during a bad economy? Not that many.
Okay.
You know what they say, food is going to be worth more than money.
Correct. You shouldn't have to trade anything if you're prepared correctly.
And this is already showing up in our grocery stores because they were talking about it just the other day on the Jim Baker show. Steve Quayle was on there, and he was talking about how if you look, the stores aren't as full as they used to be. They're empty if you really take a look. And it was weird that he said that because the last holiday, Labor Day weekend, I was in the grocery store. And I thought, wow, it's pretty empty in here. You know, this whole aisle right here is like half empty. A lot of the freezers were empty. And I looked at the lady behind me and I said, is it me or does this store seem pretty empty to you? She said, I was just thinking that too. And she said, and for it being a holiday weekend, I think that's kind of strange. And I thought, oh, we're seeing the signs.
Stock up food, people. I'm telling you. Anytime, all throughout history, when there's economic collapse of any kind, there's a shortage of food because trucks and farmers can't deliver goods if they're not going to be paid for it.
Exactly. And like I say, look at what's going on in Venezuela as an example. Now, I have a couple of friends on Facebook that I've told them to, one of them lives in northern Michigan, and she has an elderly 90-year-old mother, and I told her, I said, you need to call these food preserve sites. I gave a couple of them to her, and I said, you need to stock some food. And she said, oh, I'm not worried about it. If something happens, I just as soon go with the rest of them. And I said, Sue, do you know how terrible it is to starve to death? How are you going to feel? I said, your money in the bank isn't going to do you any good. It's going to disappear. How are you going to feel when you look at your 90-year-old mother and she's starving to death?
You see, having the dinar that's going to be holding is that. Remember, you're buying the dinar on bottom. That's where you buy anything of value. You buy it on the bottom for it to rise. And it used to be $3.22 before the war started. And Iraq is richer now than it's ever been. Okay, they have more oil found. Now they're selling their LNG. Instead of them flaring natural gas into the atmosphere, they're selling it as liquefied natural gas. They sold their first LNG tanker full about a month ago. You name it. The Iraq announced in one of their papers, you can look it up on the internet, they're planning to build the largest financial tower. It's called The Bride. And it's the tallest building in the world. You can't do that if you're a broke country. You can't do it. And the only way that you can build the highest is because you're going to be some sort of focus on being the largest financial center of some type to attract that type of clientele. And having oil at 105 to or between 150 to $250 a barrel would do it. You have bonds that are paying at 5% interest, where everyone else is paying either zero or negative interest rates. Look, all of the foreign embassies in Iraq are building new embassies, and they're the most modern embassies in the world. The American embassy, remember, an embassy might be, half an acre to 2 or 3 acres. The American embassy in Iraq is, I think, 104 acres. It's equivalent to 40 embassies in size. But there's no way that all these countries would be building modernized, very modern embassies in a backwater desert town. It doesn't make sense. The American government went in there and built one of the best international airports there. And it was supposed to stay in the Air Force hands. Guess what? They turned it over to Iraq. They got a super modern international airport to receive people. If you look at what they're building, you follow the money. Big money is not going into gold. Until big money is going into Iraq. The American people are being set up. Well,
yes.
globally, globally the people are being set up. It's
you
not
know
just
what's
America.
wrong with the American people, Gill? Is they think that nothing like this can ever happen in America. That's bull crap. We're too strong of a country. We're the biggest man on the block. And you know what they say, never say never.
Well,
and I want to address one other thing, too, about when you tell people to stock up on food, and they'll say, well, I don't get a lot of money, and I can't afford it, and blah, blah, blah. You know what? Go into YouTube, people. Put the poor man's prepper. Put the poor man's prepper in. There are people out there that have done YouTube videos and showed you things that you can buy for nearly nothing. Little Vienna sausages are 49 cents. Spam. Rice. Beans. These are things that are protein, and they aren't going to cost. And this guy, I can't remember which one it was. I looked at one. But this guy, he had like this huge box full of food, and it only cost him like $20.
Yeah. See, the government is going to be issuing out the food with these food cards. They're going to have these cards that allocate them for X amount of, you can only buy X amount of butter, X amount of this. Well, it's going to say what you're going to buy. It's going to be a voluntary thing to accept the chip in the hand. Some people will accept it as a credit card, and some people will accept the chip.
Now, see, there was a video, too, that I saw, Gill, where a man said he was homeless in the FEMA camp, and he snuck out somehow. And he said that his friend, they were taken in and they were told that if they took the chip, that they'd be able to get food stamps, they'd be able to get housing, they would get a check every month, but they had to take the chip. He said, I refused it because it was against my religious beliefs. Told him I didn't want no part of it, but my friend took it. And he said that after that man took the chip in his hand, he was like a zombie. He didn't know who he was. He acted very strange. And it was weird that he said that because, what was it? One of the doctors that I had interviewed a long time ago, he had told me a long time ago that they are going to release toxins and poison from that chip to control people. And he also said if they thought you weren't fitting into their mold, that there was a cyanide release and that they could just do you in.
It would take too much cyanide. It would have to be something else. They got other things that are much more lethal.
Oh, he said that there was a way to do someone in with the chip.
Correct. But this is going to be a voluntary system at the beginning. After the media shower, it will be mandatory globally because the globalists want all of their property marked, and we're considered their property, okay?
Yep.
And they're going to mark us now. Before the media shower, coming up here, for when they're going to ration food and money and fuel, for you to get on the rationing program to be able to get food and fuel, this is where the government, to get our money, the government says, see, it's their money, it's not the American money. Anybody with a registered gun will have to turn it in for us to get your card to work. So, in other words, if you don't have food and fuel and water, well, it's expect to lose your guns. But they're going to demand it from you before they even give you the first bit of food if you have a registered weapon.
Well, this is what Al Cuppett said, too, and he's retired Joint Chief of Staff of the Pentagon. And he said that they're going to devastate the American people. And he said, you know, people worry that they're going to come kick your door in and tell you we're dragging you away. He said, no, I don't believe that's the way it's going to work. He said they're going to make you so desperate you're going to walk into those camps voluntarily.
Correct. That's it. They know exactly what they're doing. So, again, I'm telling people, you think the Bible just happened to have a lucky guess, or does it know what it's talking about? To be consistently correct as often as it is. Wake up, people. Time is running out. We're no more than 2 months away from economic, you're going to see banks getting in trouble. They're no more than 2.
And you know, Gil, I think that they're going to use all of that to suspend the election, and that's when all hell's going to break loose.
Even if we do have the elections, if a president was to enter office in the mid of January and the meteor shower is in March, there's not enough time for him to do anything of any significance.
No. Well, you know, and read what they're talking about. If Hillary wins, then I saw a video the other day where she said she believes there should be camps for adults. And all these idiots are applauding her. And she goes, you know, after all, you don't want people out there that disagree with you politically. And then, you know, this is her agenda to gun grab and lock people up. And then if Obama wins, they've already, Black Lives Matter have already said they're going to cause riots. So, you know, I mean, and then when riots come, then martial law comes. So either way, it's going to be pure hell no matter who gets in.
I believe we're witnessing the last president that we're going to have right now. He fulfills too much of prophecies. If you understand the prophecy, you know, he says in the end days, I will put your enemy over you. He's Islamic. Islam declared war against Jews and Christians.
They have, and they, you know, they're doing it here in Michigan. They had a festival there in Detroit where some Christians went, and there was only like 8 or 9 of them, and they were holding up signs saying Jesus is Lord, and they were stoned. They turned around and started throwing cans and rocks and bottles at them, and there were police officers standing there, and they did not do a darn thing. And then when they confronted the chief of police, he said, I'm here to protect all people. He said, well, if you're here to protect all people, why didn't you protect us? We weren't throwing things. And he said, well, just look at you. And he goes, I'm asking you to leave. You're causing a ruckus. So they made the Christians leave, which they didn't cause a ruckus. They weren't throwing things and attacking people, but they were the ones that were asked to leave.
Yeah, the people, remember, Homeland Security and all these people have declared that people who believe in the Bible, and as well as people who believe in constitutional rights, is declared the enemy. Yep. You're going to go through the legal meat grinder. If you do anything to protect yourself where they have a reason to pick you up, they're going to pass you through the meat grinder of the legal system.
I saw a video where this guy got pulled over and he said something about his constitutional rights, and the cop said, oh, you're not one of them constitutionalists, are you? And he said, well, yeah, I believe in the Constitution. And he goes, and then the officer was just like fed up with him because he believed in the Constitution.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, our country's going to hell in a handbag. But you know what, you guys? We have done our 2 hours. Thank you so much, Gill, for coming on and sharing with us. It was a delight. You really brought a lot to our attention, and hopefully we woke a few people up tonight.
If you can tell your viewers to download the latest information off of my site, planet7x.net. If they go to the bottom of the page, there's some Dropbox and Google Drive links that brings you to all of the data to where they can look at where these potential sightings might happen and when. Remember, we have to see a visual to confirm the year. There are no valid sightings of this planet at the moment in the public view. And I know there's a lot of people that throw a lot of things on the internet. They're not valid sightings yet. That's not the way this object is going to look, and those are mirages and atmospheric anomalies. That's why you don't see astronomers speaking up that these things are real, because they can't focus a telescope on them. Okay? When you see views that are outside our atmosphere, like you're looking at Jupiter or Mars through a telescope, then it's a real object, chances are, okay? Unless someone made a fake of it with a Photoshop. But you're not seeing hundreds of astronomers. Remember, there's 2 to 3 million amateur astronomers. So that's why they got to shut down the internet. They don't want these people posting real photos when it comes time. So,
well, you know that they gave the internet away on October 1st. We have no control of the internet anymore.
Correct. They have to take it out of our hands so they don't get the blame. Yes. Yes.
So there's a good chance, people, that Badbaby won't be out here again after October 1st. So I'm sorry that I didn't do shows for a little while there, but like I said, I wasn't feeling well. But, hey, at least I'm out here for the last long haul, and I am booked right up to the end of September.
Everybody,
and you know what? I'm glad you came back on, Gill. It was a delight having you here. And like Gill said, go to his webpage, planet7x.com, is it, Gill?
.net.
.net.
Planet7x.net. And at the bottom is the links to go to get all of the free wall chart, the free book that gives you where it is in the Bible, because this is the most talked about object in the Bible and the least known. And how the data points point to the last book of the Bible on what it's saying, and we can build a model that proves this out. There's nothing that we can say it can't happen, because the model says that, yes, it could happen if the conditions are right. And personally, I expect it to happen exactly the way it's written. And so if you really want to follow what the...
Right with the Lord.
Yep.
Wake up, people. Quit
Yep.
walking around with this chip on your shoulder like none of this can happen here, because it's all folding out before our eyes.
That's
and
it.
Thank you so much, Gill, for joining us tonight, for doing the full 2 hours. It went by pretty fast, didn't it?
Yes, it did. Thank you for having me.
Well,
and,
like I said, we know that you haven't been feeling well, so we will keep you in our prayers. And keep in touch. I will email you a link of this recording